In 1939, America began research to create a weapon more destructive than any other before it, more powerful than 1,000 bombs from the American B-24 Liberator bomber. Yet the usage of such a devastating weapon was a necessary measure to save American lives. As Nazi forces invaded Poland in 1939, Europe was once again divided as war consumed the continent. Hitler, Mussolini, and Hirohito made up the leaders of the Axis countries, Germany, Italy, and Japan respectively. Together they sought to replace functioning governments with fascist dictatorships throughout Europe and eventually the world. The Allies, Great Britain, France, the Soviet Union, and later the United States fought to preserve democracy in their way of life. The United States turned to science to gain a tactical advantage, as the war in Europe would inevitably spread to America once again, and from this, the Manhattan Project was born.
The Manhattan Project was a classified operation to produce and manufacture atomic weapons of mass destruction. Nothing came close in importance to Einstein's letter for the Manhattan Project. Without this, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the 32nd President of the United States, would not have seen the importance in testing uranium. Sir, some recent work by E. Fermi and L. Slizard, which has been communicated to me in manuscript, leads me to expect that the element uranium may be turned into a new important source of energy in the immediate future. In the course of the last 4 months, it has been made probable through the work of Joliet in France, as well as Fermi and Slizard in America, that it may be possible to set up a nuclear chain reaction in a large mass of uranium, by which vast amounts of power and large quantities of new radium-like elements would be generated. Now it appears almost certain that this could be achieved in the immediate future. This new phenomenon would also lead to the construction of bombs. It is conceivable, though much less certain, that extremely powerful bombs of this type may thus be constructed. A single bomb of this type, carried by boat and exploded in a port, may very well destroy the whole port together with some of the surrounding territory. However, such bombs may very well prove too heavy for transportation by air. The United States has only very poor ores of uranium in moderate quantities. There is some good ore in Canada and former Czechoslovakia, while the most important source of uranium is in the Belgian Congo. These letters were penned by Einstein because Fermi and Slizard lacked recognition. In order to gain FDR's attention, they needed someone important like Albert Einstein.
As research began, Americans watched democracy fall in Europe, beginning with France. Yet involvement in a war overseas so soon after the last seemed to be a waste of American lives. It wasn't until the bombing of Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, that the American people fully embraced the war effort.
America was thrusted into the brutality of World War II by the Empire of Japan. America feared the spread of both communism and fascism, but didn't want to involve themselves in another world war. Until the fateful day came, a day that was bittersweet for the Allies, who mourned the lives lost, but were excited for the beast that Japan had awoken.
Of presenting the President of the United States.
Vice President, Mr. Speaker, members of the Senate, of the House of Representatives, yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan. The United States was at peace with that nation, and at solicitation of Japan, still in conversation with its government and its emperor, looking toward the maintenance of peace in the Pacific. Indeed, 1 hour after Japanese air squadrons had commenced bombing in the American island of Oahu, The Japanese ambassador to the United States and his colleague delivered to our Secretary of State a formal reply to a recent American message. And while this reply stated that it seemed useless to continue the existing diplomatic negotiations, it contained no threat or hint of war or of armed attack. It will be recorded that the distance of Hawaii from Japan makes it obvious that the attack was deliberately planned many days or even weeks ago. During the intervening time, the Japanese government has deliberately sought to deceive the United States by false statements and expressions of hope for continued peace.
This was more of a formality, considering everyone knew that war was imminent, but showing Congress that he was going to let them keep some of their power helped him more in the end. Now that America has officially entered the war, the Manhattan Project became even more important as a weapon with its destructive potential to end the war. The United States realized that the atomic bomb would be the best way to save the lives of American soldiers and to protect the homeland. A team of scientists and military officials were placed in charge of the project and operated under very strict rules to protect American secrets and to protect those involved in the weapons development. Julius Robert Oppenheimer, who is often credited as the father of the atomic bomb, was one of these esteemed scientists. His importance to the project provoked this letter from General Ulysses Groves. It is requested that you refrain from flying in airplanes of any description. The time is saved is not worth the risk. You refrain from driving an automobile from any appreciable distance, above a few miles, and from being without suitable protection on any lonely road, such as the road from Los Alamos to Santa Fe. In driving about town, a guard of some kind should be used, particularly during hours of darkness. The cost of such a guard is proper charged against the United States.
As the war progressed, the brilliance of American scientists pushed the bomb from theory to reality. The first successful test of the new weapon occurred just over 1 year after the Normandy landings on July 16, 1945. At this point in the war, Hitler was dead and Germany had surrendered to the Allies, yet the Japanese Empire still posed a threat to the United States and the other Allies. The Allies sought unconditional surrender from Japan, but knew that both the Japanese military and civilian populations would fight until their last breath. The planned Japanese mainland invasion would have been the death of hundreds of thousands of Allied soldiers. For America to even establish themselves on the island of Kyushu, an estimated 20,000 American deaths and almost 75,000 casualties would be the consequence. In an interview with General Karl Spaatz, he said, "If we were to go ahead with the plans for a conventional invasion with ground and naval forces, I believe the Japanese thought they could inflict heavy casualties on us and possibly, as a result, get better surrender terms." On August 6, 1945, an American B-29 bomber dropped the world's first deployed atomic bomb over the Japanese city of Hiroshima. The bomb was ironically nicknamed Little Boy, as the destruction it caused is far from what its name suggests. Shortly after, on August 9, 1945, America dropped a second atomic bomb, codenamed Fat Man, on the Japanese city of Nagasaki. Their impacts were devastating, destroying infrastructure and vaporizing any civilians in the blast radius. Those that were lucky enough to be outside the blast became sick as radiation polluted their environments. As devastating as the bombs were, they were necessary to end the war. Japan's leadership at the time was split between two competing views. One faction favored surrender with the understanding that Hirohito be allowed to remain emperor, while the other faction favored fighting to gain better surrender terms. The atomic bombs together killed an estimated 250,000 Japanese people, but the Japanese were prepared to sacrifice tens of millions of soldiers. By using the bombs, both Japanese and American lives were saved.
A short time ago, an American airplane dropped one bomb on Hiroshima and destroyed its usefulness to the enemy. That bomb has more power than 20,000 tons of TNT. The Japanese began the war from the air at Pearl Harbor. They have been repaid many-fold, and the end is not yet. With this bomb, we have now added a new and revolutionary increase in destruction to supplement the growing power of our armed forces.
The world came to realize the sheer destruction of the atomic bomb, but they did not know yet the effect it would have for decades to come. The radiation remained in cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki for many years, and with an extremely dangerous weapons like the atomic bombs on the playing field, no warring powers were safe. The idea of mutually assured destruction was conceived because the arms race was to build massive amounts of nuclear bombs. While American lives were saved in using the atomic bombs, it continues to affect our society today and portrays America in a bad light, as we are the only country in history to use such a destructive weapon.